Go ahead.
Okay, we'll call the meeting to order at 7 o'clock, May 19th, 2020. Meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission of the Town of Southampton. Rob, you want to call the roll? And go through some ground rules?
All right, Commissioner Gork.
Here.
And just to be clear, when you're ready to speak, just unmute yourself and then just name your position, commissioner and your last name, just for the record. So I got Commissioner Gork, Commissioner Locks.
Commissioner Locks here.
Commissioner Macchio.
Macchio here.
Commissioner Volpe. Alternate Albanese.
Alternate Albanese here.
Alternate Coles.
Alternate Coles here.
Alternate Coviello.
Alternate Coviello here.
Alternate Salvacool. Secretary Santiago.
Santiago here.
Vice Chairman Salka.
Commissioner Salka here.
And Chairman Hammersley.
Chairman Hammersley here. We have a quorum. Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I think we got Rob's kids to hold the flag for us. He's got to go gather them, but
They're coming.
That's amazing.
go ahead, Rob. Have your kids lead us off here.
Where is he? Hold it steady. Okay, go ahead, Kayla. We gotta go. Pledge of Allegiance.
What do I do it?
You're gonna lead it.
Oh,
Pledge of
no,
allegiance.
no.
Come on, come on. I pledge of allegiance.
To the flag, the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If we could just pause for a moment of silent reflection.
Wait, I'm 9.
Shh, go. Yes.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Rob, you want to lay down some ground rules before we do approval of the minutes?
Yeah, just so everybody knows, I'm going to actively try and keep everybody muted who's not speaking, just to cut back on the potential background noise. I just ask that everybody who's going to speak, obviously, the way we work public hearings is that the commission, the applicant will present their application. The commission will then ask questions, and then when the public is prompted, either for or against, that's when I'll actually unmute those who can't unmute themselves. Basically, the ones who call in, they literally can't see anything and they can't comment. Anybody else who has comments or questions during this can use the chat function, which is in the bottom of the screen. There's like a little circle kind of in the middle, and it's like a little bubble, and you could use that to ask questions. Otherwise, you can also email me if necessary, if you're a call-in person and you have no other way to contact us during this hearing or during a hearing. You can email me and I'll read those questions in real time. And just to show you, wrong one second here, how to navigate to the meeting materials. Here it is. Okay. For anybody really, if you want to navigate to the meeting materials or to email me, you just go to the town website, www.southampton.org, click on departments. I'm sharing my screen right here. Scroll down and you can click on planning. And then you'll see the May 19th, 2020 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. That's the link you're going to go for the documents. Otherwise, if you scroll down, you'll see my email, Robert A. Phillips, down here if you want to email me directly. Otherwise, you just click on this link and there's all the documents for each public hearing application that's on tonight's agenda. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Chairman Hammersley. And again, I'll just be muting everybody to make sure we keep the background noise down, and we should be in good shape.
Thanks, Rob. Could I get a motion for the approval of the minutes from May 5th, 2020?
Commissioner Selko makes a motion to approve the May 5th, 2020 meeting minutes.
We have a motion from Commissioner Salka. Do we have a second?
Commissioner Locke, second.
Commissioner Locke is a second. Is there any discussion or any changes that need to be made? Don't hear any. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, passed. So we'll go to item number 7 in our agenda, public hearing. Item A, Lovely Development Incorporated special permit application for multiple buildings on one site, property located at 318 North Main Street, owned by Beam & Corman Manufacturing Company in the B zone, parcel size 1.65 acres, SPU number 633. We have the applicant. I think it's Sev.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commission members. My name is Sev Bovino, planner with Kratzer Jones and Associates, representing the applicant, Lovely Development. The property is located at 318 North Main Street at the intersection with Chapman Street. It is B-zoned with an area of 1.67 acres, served by public water and sewer.
Excuse me, Seth, do you need me to show anything on the screen?
If you could, please, if you could put a site plan up, would be good.
All right, I have it up.
You can move, if you can move it to the site plan or grading plan, that's an existing condition map. Yeah, that's good. That is the landscape plan.
Just have a delay here, that's all.
Yeah. The first map is an existing condition map. The second one is a landscape and layout plan, and the third is a site plan, grading plan. Mr. Chairman, Commission members, again, as you can see from the map on the screen, to the top of the screen you have Chapman Street, which is north. To the right of the screen you have North Main Street, which is east, and then you have the rail to trail to the west. And then to the south you have the Town of Southampton Fire Station. The property was occupied by multiple buildings for many years, operating as an industrial facility. A few years back, a fire destroyed most of the structures, and now it is a brownfield site. Lovely Development is interested to utilize the property for 2 offices building laid out as shown on the map. They are laid out in east-west direction, facing each other, with parking and drainage in the center of the property. The reason for this orientation is that the public will have an unobstructed view from North Main Street and from the rail to trail. If we place the building with a back to North Main Street, you will not see any interior area of this site. The buildings will have a residential colonial look. The rear of the building along Chapman Street will have residential looking windows with shutters. It basically be similar to the front view, except instead of have doors, it will have windows. The reason we are proposing 2 buildings is because it is the highest and best use of the property, and one building would not serve the clientele or the tenants well. These buildings are built on a slab with a low roof profile matching the medical office buildings to the north. The reason for the special permit is that we are proposing 2 buildings on one site. The minimum lot area in this zone is 20,000 square feet. Therefore, we could subdivide it if necessary. We could subdivide it into 2 lots. As previously stated, there were 3 buildings on this property. One along Chapman Street was about 15,000 square feet, was a T-shaped building. You can visualize that on the existing condition map. Was built out of masonry. The other smaller block building was along the rail to trail, and it is still there, the block building. And also a wood barn slash garage to the south, which remains are still visible there. We believe that this proposal meets the regulations and it will not be detrimental to the public or the older development of the area. We are proposing 2 buildings again. There used to be 2 plus the barn. We addressed all the staff comments. All the appropriate notes and details are on the plans. We ask the commission to consider approving this application. With me tonight is Mark Lovely and also Paul Natali from Arcadis. If you have any questions for Mark or Paul regarding cleanup or for myself, we'll be glad to answer.
All right, thank you, Sev.
Thank you.
Is that, okay, any commission members have any questions? So I'm going to start with a list and just go through that. So Commissioner Macchio, we'll start with you. Do you have any questions?
Commissioner Macchio, no, I'm all set. I understand what's there and everything. I'm pretty good with it right now, and I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Volpe?
Yeah, I do have a couple of questions. Thank you, Chairman Hammersley. So I was just kind of wondering what the purpose was for the not wanting to put the sidewalk on Chapman Street, the special permit request to waive the sidewalk. If you could kind of just explain the thought process there a little bit to me.
We have changed our mind. We're not requesting a waiver. As a matter of fact, the latest maps I sent to Rob show the sidewalk. We realized that that is a good connection from the rail to trail to North Main Street, and there's not a possibility to build them on the north side. So we are showing them. We also showing a bike rack and a bench on the northwest corner, right by the rail to trail. So if people want to use that, will be available to the public.
So just to confirm, you're withdrawing your request for a sidewalk waiver along Chapman Street.
That's correct.
I had seen that you had addressed the comment and the request of number 12 of the additional comments for the bike rack, but I didn't see, and I had seen that the sidewalk was represented in the new site plan, but I wasn't sure if that was still on there. I'm glad because that fits within our POCD and is a good way to connect 2 very busy sections of our town, our historic district and our industrial commercial district. So I'm glad to hear that. That's all I got.
You're correct. And we realized that and we changed our mind.
Wonderful. Thank you. That's all I got.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Gwark?
This is Commissioner Glorick. My question is the entrance, it's closest to the intersection of Chapman and North Main Street. Concern for me, as I usually take that way on North Main Street heading north and take a left on Chapman to go to Lowe's in that direction. Is there any concern of backup? I know it's going to be probably medical offices or low traffic site, but if you're taking a left on North Main Street, if there's backup on Chapman trying to turn into this property right there, are you concerned about traffic building up on North Main Street and then slowing everything down?
No, the traffic, we sent a report indicating the trips. The total trips are 52 trips at the peak hour. So we don't expect a problem. And that is actually the best location for us to place it. It would not be good for us to place it way to the west near the rail to trail. Will cause problems there. And for the public, easy access in and out of here to this site, that is the best location. We could place it in the middle of the site, but then we're destroying the building possibilities. And as you know, to make the site work, we need to create as many square feet as possible on the site. Otherwise, we will not be able to pay back the state for the expenses that's going to be incurred here.
Commissioner Gwarek again. Thank you, Sev. Also, can you talk about the boundary with the rails to trails, just what you propose? I know the those gardens are back there for the drainage, but is there going to be landscaping buffers? Is it going to be mostly open where it's basically you could see straight through to North Main Street and it'll be landscaped? Could you just talk about that?
Yeah, we have two rain gardens on the west side um, of the buildings. But yes, you could see through. You could see through from the rail to trail. And in a way, we thought that was good. They'll be opening up that area instead of be feeling like you're trapped in when you walk by there. You'll be able to see across. We are preserving the trees along North Main Street, most of those trees. And we have landscaping within the site, all the flowering shrubs and trees along Chapman and within the site.
Thank you. Commissioner Gwarek again. Last question. As far as cleanup, is there any environmental cleanup concerns for, I know it's going to be on slab, but is there any concerns for public on that property? I know it was contaminated. I'm just not sure, exactly the extent of what type of contamination, and if there's any, public issues.
After all the commissions have finished asking the questions, Paul from Arcadis is here tonight to answer any questions regarding the status of the cleanup.
Okay. Thank you. That's it, Commissioner Gwarek. That's all I have.
Okay. Thanks, Jeff. Commissioner Locks?
Relax. My two questions were one about the sidewalk, which is already resolved, and the other one was the details of the cleanup. I'd like to understand what's going on there.
Again, Paul Natali from Arcadis will answer those questions for you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Sin.
Oh, excuse me. Am I answering that later?
Hey,
Yes.
Paul, why don't you go ahead and do it now?
Okay.
And then we'll continue with the commissioners, and I'll circle back to you, Sue, if you'd like, just to see if you have any questions from Paul's presentation. But why doesn't Paul just go now?
Okay, thank you.
Your question, Sue, was just the nature of the cleanup and what we're dealing with here?
Yes, it does have to, let's say, ground soil need to be moved in and out of the site, blah, blah, blah,
So obviously, the long history of the site. It was a Beaton and Corbin was a
Yep.
manufacturer of buttons, and they did a lot of metal plating on the site. And with that metal plating, heavy metals, they dewatered in a lagoon, two lagoons on the site. One was dug out years and years ago, which is that little finger on the southeast side. And another one is still active with a thin layer of metal hydroxide sludge from the dewatering, which is pretty immobile. With metal plating comes degreasing, and so there was a vapor degreaser there, which is chlorinated solvents. They had storage areas of chlorinated solvents. So on top of that, they have a gasoline tank that was there, still there underground, and they have a large number 6 fuel oil above ground storage tank. So there you have a mixture of petroleum, volatile organics, chlorinated solvents, and heavy metals. And all this is going to be addressed with regards to the major stuff is going to be soil excavated and offsite disposal. And which will it's all shallow stuff. It doesn't go deep. And there are areas of petroleum where we may reuse on the site, and that would be all reused under paved parking lot with an environmental land use restriction, which will aid in the cost of this as well. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. As far as there are areas of solvents and heavy metals and petroleum that will be excavated and disposed of off-site. confirmation soil samples is part of that. We collect confirmation soil samples to determine when.
Rob Phillips here. If you could just try to speak a little bit louder, you're fading in and out a little bit.
Okay. And our excavations are all going to be sampled when we're complete, and to determine the success of the remediation, and that's pretty much it in a nutshell. It's just there's several areas of concern that where they stored waste, and then there's areas where they actually did the metal plating. So that's pretty much it.
Sue, does that take care of your question? Do you have
Not
any
really.
follow-
I'm very familiar with anodizing and plating and all that type of stuff. And it seeps into the ground big time. Now they don't even allow companies to do that any longer. It has to be done in a sealed vat in the ground and everything. So I'd like to make sure that those reports come back as clean whistle.
The plating was done in the the metal plating was done in the building on concrete slabs. So that.
Right. It still
really
seeps in.
No, of course it still seeps in, but we have done multiple testing of the slab and beneath the slab, and obviously in areas where there was, where there was storage of waste, storage of materials, and this is all being done in accordance with the regulations, the remediation standard regulations, and it's overseen by a Connecticut licensed environmental professional. So it is under regulatory oversight. So.
Okay, very good. Well, wish you luck.
Thank you.
Commissioner Gork, I got to circle back to you because I think you had a question on the environmental as well. I don't know if you want to follow up with Paul on this.
Yes, this is Commissioner Gork. What's the time frame as far as remediation, the land use restriction filing, and basically the building? Are we talking 6 to 12 months out?
That may be a question with Mark, because there is a certain agreement with this town. There's a tri-party agreement going on, and there's how to put it, there's a clearing title and all that other good stuff. So I think everything's being worked through there. As far as the environmental land use restriction, that doesn't get filed until the site is developed. And once the site is developed, the environmental land use restriction gets applied to the site.
Commissioner Gork again. Thank you. What about, is there plans on post remediation or groundwater monitoring, continuing after development of the site? Are there going to be monitoring wells left in place?
Yes, after remediation is complete and development of the site, there will be a monitoring well network that will be installed and sampled in accordance with the regulations.
Thank you. It's Commissioner Gork again. One last question. As far as the buildings on slab and solvents in the past, is there any sub-slab mitigation for the VOCs or any systems, passive or active, planned, or is it it's not in that area of the buildings proposed?
Most of the solvents are in the paved area, and so not beneath the buildings. I think there is a proposal, and Mark can answer this. There is a proposal to put a foundation boot on the southern building to address any solvents in groundwater.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Mark Lovely, President of Lovely Development, with offices at 710 Main Street, Plantsville. Just to answer Commissioner Gork's comments, we are actually putting a ventilation system under all the buildings, and there is a boot under the building that Paul was talking about that's going to be in the area where there's a little bit of contamination, but we are putting a mitigation system and a ventilation system under every building just to make sure that we don't have any problems in the future.
And I just want to reiterate that it's not an active system where we're going to be drawing. From what I understand, it's just vented pipe. But there's not going to be, when you asked that question, I thought it was more of an active remediation system to clean up soil, and that's not what's happening. As a precaution, they're putting piping beneath the building.
Does that answer your question, Jeff?
It does, and I appreciate all the work being done to make sure the site is safe. Last, I guess, concern or question is, are you going to need approval from the CT Deep Department of Environmental Energy, Protection to basically construct these buildings to give you the go-ahead with these systems? Or are they just an extra measure just in case, just an added feature, basically?
The DEP doesn't approve anything. This is going to be under a Connecticut licensed environmental professional who serves as the DEP and makes sure that the regulations are followed. DEP doesn't necessarily approve, and it's designated for a Connecticut licensed environmental professional.
Commissioner Gork, that's it for me. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Jeff. Let's move on to Commissioner Santago.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Peter Santago. Just to start, I'm pleased that this site finally is going to be different than what it has been over the years. And so thank you to Mark and Sev and you guys for taking it on and doing this. And also, I think it's a very good laid out site plan. I'm pleased to see the active green space there and that you thought about involving the rails in your site plan. And so I think that's very, very good. In regards to this particular application, which is 2 buildings on 1 lot, given the nature of what you have, and I appreciate the colonial look and feel of it, I don't have a particular problem with 2 7,000 square foot office buildings there on it. Concerns I have been echoed in regards to the environmental, as well as, that strip of town on North Main Street at rush hour is horrifying. But coming out of Chapman Street, I don't think you have any choice but to come out there. You can't come out on North Main Street. That would be worse, I think. So I think if something was to go on this site, I think quite honestly, I think that's the only way to go. So while it's a concern, it would be a concern regardless of what got put there. So I think it's well laid out. The concerns of Mr. Locks and Gork and everybody on environmental, I think we all should, in regards to anything else being there. But I think from a site plan perspective, this looks good to me. And I appreciate the nature upon which you did this by green space, rails to trails. And if we think about what was there for years, which was blight, which was contamination and all that, and to have a couple of nice colonial looking office buildings with green space and incorporating rails to trails, that I think benefits the town. It will certainly look better than anything that was there. So it's really more comments than anything. So that's really all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Thanks, Peter. Commissioner Salka.
Basically, I had 3 questions, and all 3 of those were answered. One was the environmental, and I think that was adequately answered. I do like what Seb was talking about, putting the sidewalk back in on Chapman Street. I think that's important. I did have, and I still have, some concern about the curb cut on the northeast side. But again, as Commissioner Santago said, it really is the only place to put it. I like the 2 building concept. I like the green space. So basically overall, my questions have been answered. and I like the concept. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Bob. Commissioner Coviello.
Hi, Bob. Yeah, I don't really have anything to add that hasn't been talked about already, so I agree. It looks like a pretty solid plan.
Okay. Commissioner Coles.
I think it looks like a great plan, and I'm happy to see the space utilized, and the environmental concerns are going to be mitigated as part of the construction project. So, best of luck to you. Thank you for making an improvement on this space.
And Commissioner Albanese.
Commissioner Albanese. I just have two quick questions. Seb, I do like the rain gardens. They look really good. I'm assuming that the rain gardens are taking on all the management of stormwater. So all the impervious cover is going to getting diverted to the rain gardens. Is that correct?
Correct. And the last catch basin in the drainage run has a hooded system in it to prevent any oils that have escaped from the parking lot to be picked up and cleaned up.
Right. Is that like considered a vortex chamber or something like that? What is it exactly?
It's just a hood up against the pipe to prevent the oils from escaping into the drainage system. If any kind of oil or pollutants will build up in the catch basin, it can be removed safely.
Great, thank you. And then the only other question also related to the rain gardens is related to the pollinator-friendly seed mix. I understand that from staff comments, there's going to be a note added to the landscape plans, but I didn't see it on the plan set that we have.
The type of seeding, you mean?
Yes, pollinator-friendly seed mix for the rain gardens.
Yeah, I believe it was in one of the responses on the response sheet. It's in one of the notes, but if it's not, we'll be glad to add it to it.
Okay. Great. And these basins really, these rain gardens kind of just take care of themselves. They just kind of flourish on their own. So there's not a lot of management associated with these, correct?
Yes, and we have shrubs planted in there, which will be maintained.
Thank you. And I think the design looks really good. I'm happy with everything else. And the other questions I had were answered this evening as well by the other commissioners. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Teresa. Sev, anything to add before we open it up to the public, or?
One thing I want to say that the concerns about the curb cut, we could have extended that building on the north side and made it bigger and just have a curb cut on North Main Street, which there's an existing one there. But obviously that is not a good choice to have a curb cut on North Main Street. So this is the best option.
Okay. So with that, we'll open it up to the public. If there's anyone who'd like to testify in support of this application. Have some time to see if anyone's out there.
Just give me a second here. I'm trying to see what we have for call-ins. I'm just going to unmute everybody for a quick second just to see if we can. All right. Does anybody have any questions or comments? You're in the portion of this, right, Bob?
Sorry.
Yeah,
I'm in those in favor. Yes. I don't hear any. I did receive a note from Jim Capone there who said he'd like to add something. So, Jim, you want to do that now?
I could. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to clarify one of Seb's comments, and I know that there's a reduction, Seb, in impervious area, correct?
Reduction in what? Impervious area, yeah.
In total impervious area? Yes. You had made the comment concerning the rain gardens taking on parking lot drainage, but I believe the design is for the rain gardens to accept the building impervious area. Can you clarify that?
Yes, it's the building rooftops.
Okay, I thought a previous comment you said that it took on the building and the parking lot.
That is incorrect. If I said that, it's incorrect. It takes the rooftops.
Okay. And then I think
And
point.
desire is achieved because we are reducing the impervious area greatly.
Yes. And I agree with that. That's great. Lastly, there is an existing fence line along the trail. And it's not in the disturbed area. I just want to clarify, I think it's important that that fence remain because of the activity. And it's going to be a drop off in those rain garden area, and it actually may hold water for a bit. So I just want to confirm that that fence line will remain along the trail.
Along the trail, we're not planning to remove it. If we are doing anything, it will be replaced with a new one in case it's in bad shape.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, thanks, Jim. Good questions. I appreciate your input. So I didn't hear anyone there, Rob, wanting to testify in favor. So why don't we see if there's anyone who has a need or a desire to testify in opposition to this application.
I'm going to unmute all again, and I will note that I've received no emails, and there's no. Might be a comment.
Majority Leader Mitch McConnell.
Jim Capone commented already, so yeah.
People are operating.
Everybody's unmuted right now.
Anyone who'd like to testify application. I don't hear anybody, Rob. Are you getting any messages or any emails or?
Nope, not at all.
Okay, I would like to testify against. Can anybody hear me?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, this is Stephanie Urillo. I have a dental office across the street for 32 years now. And I was there when being.
Stephanie, how are you tonight?
I'm super duper. How are you, all you guys?
I'm doing great.
I'm getting used to all these Zooms. Let me just say something. But my office is.
I'm trying to get everybody right now, except for Stephanie.
Let me know when you're ready for me to go.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So, Stephanie Urello, 360 North Main Street. And I have a couple questions. One of the things I read on the special permit was that it cannot abut town property. And the southern part of this property abuts the fire department. So correct me if I'm wrong, because if you, I don't know, I just want to know, but that's one of the things I read in the special permit. There are other concerns I have, and one is the traffic flow, having been there for 32 years. And as I said earlier, I was there when Beaton and Corbin burned down. I was there when the trains used to come back and forth. And it's a heavily trafficked area. In my complex, we have a lot of problem with people parking there to use the linear trail. And, you know, we're private property, so we constantly tell people to go down to Mill Street. I'm concerned about traffic congestion. I believe it was Mr. Gorick who I think astutely said that we may have a traffic flow problem with the ingress and egress coming out on Chapman Street. So, I just don't think it's a good idea. Plus, the front of my office will see another back of a building. So that's an aesthetic thing, I realize, but I hope everybody knows that the rail to trails are heavily used. I was in my office today seeing emergencies, and people are on that all the time. And it's a problem with parking because it's a liability issue for whoever goes there because it's private property. But it's also a traffic congestion problem, especially if you want to take a left-hand turn to go north on North Main Street, Route 10, and you have all the increased traffic from all the parking. It's going to be a huge problem. I really don't think this is a good idea. Aesthetically, it would be a great idea, but I think it needs to be further thought out.
Okay. Thank you, Stephanie, for coming out. Sev, Mark, or Paul, you want to respond to anything that Stephanie said? Sev is on mute, Rob.
Yeah, hold on.
Okay.
We're
I did it. As far as people parking where they're not supposed to, we cannot control them other than ask the police department to put some no parking signs. We are providing the walk. That is why we changed our mind. We want to make sure that people can go safely from North Main Street down there to the trail if they choose, or vice versa. As far as not being able to be next to a town property, I don't recall that being the case. We are abutting a town property, and this is the concept is to approve 2 buildings versus 1 on a piece of property. And as I stated, we can subdivide this and still have 2 buildings.
I would like to make a comment. First of all, knowing that this is private property, the police will not put up signs. My condo association had to put up signs. So the police won't get involved if it's private property. And I know that for a fact because we've dealt with this in my condo complex for a long time. So that's not right. But with the special, I would like to know, because it definitely said somewhere, I read my background information for this meeting, that special permit cannot abut town property. And I would like Rob Phillips to comment on that, because you know, it has to be one way. Thank you.
Just want to respond to the parking.
sorry,
Our parking.
I was in the middle of emailing a response to somebody in real time here, so I missed the question.
She's wondering, Rob, about the special permit and abutting against town property, whether it's allowed to abut against town property.
I don't know of any regulation that references anything about abutting town property. I'm not sure what that might be.
Did you see that on the application, or did you see it somewhere in the regulations? I'm directing the question to the.
I saw that when I was reading the information that I received regarding the meeting this evening. It said it cannot be allowed if it's abutting town property. And I thought, well, why is this even under consideration if it's abutting town property? Because it abuts the fire department.
That's incorrect. I don't know where's that. I don't see that anywhere. Maybe you saw the description where the property abuts to, and it abuts the town property. No. Okay. And then regarding the parking signage, our parking is between the 2 buildings. It's not close to the Chapman Street, so we don't think it's going to be a problem for us. If people park on the property that you occupy, that's a separate issue.
Yeah, I realize that, Sev, but the issue is...
Stephanie, time out for a second. Can you just make sure you identify yourself before you start speaking, because people are recording this, and it's going to be very difficult for them to keep up. And then the second thing I'll say is that typically we don't provide a debate forum for stuff like this. You know, you get to stand up and say your thing. We'll give you a little leeway, but we got to move on to other things. So if you can sort of sum up what your concerns are, I want to move on to see if there's anyone else who'd like to speak. I think we might have one more person, and then give the applicant an opportunity to close it out. So go ahead.
Okay, Stephanie Willow again, 360 North Main Street. And you know, with regards to parking, my concern is the parking, the traffic flow. You know, my area's been vandalized in the past. It's just, I just have grave concerns about all the increased volume on a very small street, even with the sidewalk in place, which I think is a great idea. But, you know, we've got to consider the neighborhood as well. So thank you for all your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Stephanie. We appreciate your perspective, and we'll take it into consideration. And I think that you have been there for a while. I know you've been there for a while, as you said, and it's certainly something that we appreciate as well. So is there anyone else, Rob? We have one person out there who's only identified as hello to everybody. What I see, and I don't know if that person would like to say something. You want to unmute them there and see if they have something?
Everybody, one more time, one more unmute. Everybody's unmuted.
So I have a hello there to everyone. Does that person want to say something? I don't know who that is.
Actually, a response just came through. No, thank you, not at this time.
Okay. Okay. So it looks like the public is. We don't have anyone else from the public who wants to provide any more testimony. Seb, Mark, Paul, anything to close this public hearing out, or?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a couple comments. Mark Lovely, President of Lovely Development again. We are in a tri-party agreement with the town and the bank to get this property developed. We've been working 5 years on this, getting state funds, getting a loan from the Naugatuck Valley COG to be able to get this site developed. So there's been a lot of work on the town staff and on my staff over 5 years, and money that's been spent to try and get this area from a blighted situation into something that's a gateway to our town that looks good. I think a couple comments on the parking. We can work with the town and probably work with Jim in the highway department to put no parking signs on Chapman Street. I think that might have been part of Stephanie's comments, is people parking on Chapman Street. We have enough parking on our property to take care of all the medical office space, and we have grass overflow parking if needed that we set up also just in case. So I don't see the parking being a problem because we're actually a few over what we have just to be able to make sure we have enough so there's no parking on Chapman Street. But other than that, that's about it. Looking forward to hopefully getting this developed and making a new gateway into the town with it.
Rob, any reason to keep this public hearing open?
No, I have no reason.
Okay, if there's no objection from any commission members, we're going to close the public hearing on this one. So I'll give you a second, raise your hand. I don't see anybody having an objection, so we'll close the public hearing on that application, and we'll move on to item 7B. Sines LLC special permit application to construct multiple buildings on one lot to facilitate the development and operation of a source separated organics recycling facility known as volume reduction plant using anaerobic digestion and anaerobic composting to produce compost, renewable energy, and heat for use in greenhouses that will grow premium quality vegetables. Property located at 111 Spring Street in an I-1 zone, parcel size 37.4 acres, SPU number 537.1. There was an approval on this property, and I think it expired. Rob, before we move any further, there was a question about whether legal notices were sent out. Do we have the applicant here who can attest to that?
Yeah, Steve Judas, I think, is on this call right now. He did confirm through email, text that they did, in fact, complete the notice to abutters, the required notice to abutters. I'll let him take it from here. Steve, are you there?
I'm here. For the record, Stephen Judas with Harry Cole & Son, 876.
Sure.
Good evening. The legal notices did go out, and we did provide the receipts to the department. I believe they went there Friday. So, we did have a couple return that came back. We also dropped those off as well. So those are all on the record at the planning board.
Okay.
Steve, if you could maybe talk a little closer to the microphone, there's a little bit of an echo going on. We lost
it. Completely, Steve. I don't hear you at all.
All right, you're back, Steve.
All right. I was going to say I could try and call in if you think that'd be better. Just talk that way through the phone. Can we do that?
I think, okay. For now.
It's better not to play around.
All right. So tonight I'm here. I'm going to start my presentation if that's okay, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah,
For the record,
sorry, absolutely. Go ahead. Sorry.
again, for the record, Stephen Judas with Harry Cole. So tonight, here on behalf of Sunco LLC, that office is located at 321 Main Street, Farmington, and John Sinise is the principal of Sunco LLC. Tonight, we're here to respectfully request that the reapproval of special permit SPU 537 and site plan SP number 1672. These applications were previously approved by the Commission on July 17th, 2014. The original applicant, Turning Earth, has stepped away from the site, and during that time, the property owner has been looking for a new occupant for the same type of use. Unfortunately, the owner missed the opportunity to extend the previous approvals. If he had requested that extension within the 5-year period, we could have just submitted a letter. So it's a little unfortunate that didn't happen. It would have been a little more straightforward to just give you guys a letter and not have to go through all the possible circumstances. But that being said, we're here. He asked us to move forward with a formal application for the reapproval of the previous approved plans. We submitted copies of the original plans. We created new applications identifying the owner as the owner and the applicant. And we submitted the required fees for the applications as well. I'd like to, if I may, ask that the minutes from the previous meetings of May 20th, 2014 and June 3rd, 2014 be incorporated into this public hearing. I did forward those to Rob via email, and I highlighted the appropriate sections in those meeting minutes. If those could be part of the record, that would be helpful, I think, to support our proposal. And we also submitted the site plans. The site plans that we submitted are basically copies of the approved site plan set from that July 17th planning and zoning meeting, July 17th, 2014. Also in the record, I just want to make a note, there is an email from Amy Kessler from Turning Earth permitting the use of their plans and documents for this hearing for Sunco LLC to use all the information that they've previously submitted. The property, as some of you may recall, was a 37.5 acre parcel. It's known as the Accessories Map 168 Parcel 13, and has an address of 111 Spring Street. It's located directly behind the BJ's building. Rob, do you have the ability to put one of those maps up? I'm thinking that C4 might be the best map.
All right, let me check.
Yeah, it's in the site. The document labeled site plan. Access through this facility will be located through the main BJ's driveway site. There are existing cross easements that permit access. And we'll be utilizing the existing signal light on Spring Street. The butters to the north, we have the Jensen Home facility. To the east, we are butted northeasterly by the former Pratt Whitney building, which is now owned by the Southampton Business Park 2. And also to the east by the BJ's property itself, which is owned by Twinco. To the south, we're abutted by a mini storage facility owned by Storage Equities, and also by an industrial site owned by Southampton Business Park. To the west, we're abutted by the Quinnipiac River and vacant industrial property owned by the Spring Meadow Corporation. The existing parcel is relatively flat. It's partially wooded. The grades are very shallow. There are pockets of wetland soils throughout the site, which kind of limits the location of development on the property. The area of our proposed development is really the best and only use or area really for development without having any major wetland impacts. We are currently before the Wetland Commission requesting their reconsideration of this application as well. So we will definitely need their blessings before this commission can move forward with this application. The proposal is, and forgive me, I'm not an expert in this field. I'm going to explain to you guys to the best of my ability based on the research that I've done and previous approvals of what's going on. But we're proposing the construction and operation of a source separated organics recycling facility using anaerobic digestion and aerobic composting to produce compost, renewable energy, and heat for use within greenhouses. The greenhouses will then be used to produce premium quality vegetables. So it's kind of a full cycle facility. The site will contain a small office building, receiving area. There's to the south of the site. There are enclosed process areas and modules, and a storage area, maturation bays, 2 reactor tanks, biofilter areas, and greenhouses. The plan has 2 proposed greenhouses and 1 future greenhouse, which is the building all the way to the east of the site. The site will be serviced by public water and public sewer. And the site proposal contains a subsurface stormwater collection system and a couple detention basins that are designed to accommodate town Southampton's required stormwater volumes and stormwater quality as necessary. There'll be a small parking lot to the south of the facility for employees. The proposed development is approximately 1,300 feet from Spring Street, 550 feet from the Quinnipiac River, 200 feet from the southerly property line, and 180 feet from the northerly property line. And there will be an existing vegetated buffer on all sides of the facility. So the facility will also be completely fenced with a gated entry. The process for this facility for anaerobic and aerobic composting takes approximately 5 weeks. They take the waste, the organic waste, and they bring it to the site. That waste is combined with grass clippings and carbon, which is basically wood chips. The waste is ultimately converted to compost. During this process, liquid and gas methane is created, and that methane gas is then used to power combined heat power generators. Excess power is used for the site itself, and then any additional power will be sold back to the grid. So it's kind of it's a technology that's very very popular in Europe, and it's something that Turning Earth had hoped to bring to Southampton, and now the owner is still hoping to do that. His intention in this day and age is to have a shovel-ready site, so he can attract a user that would be able to incorporate this proposal. If at some point the proposal changed, we would definitely have to come back to this commission for approvals for those changes. But right now, we're just asking that the commission look at this as a whole as to how it was approved previously, and we'd like to move forward with the approved plans and the previously approved applications and standards. So basically, that concludes my presentation. I believe the applicant believes that from a sustainability perspective, this proposed use would be a great asset to the town. And to my knowledge, I believe what we exceeds all the requirements of the town Southampton's regulations. So if you have any questions for me, I'd be more than happy to try and answer them.
Okay. Thanks, Steve. So we'll start with Commissioner Salka this time and see if he has any questions.
The only question I have is basically, this is the same proposal you did 5 years ago, and basically the application ran out at the end of the 5 years. Is that correct?
That is correct, sir.
So really, I have no questions. This is the same proposal, so it's really just an extension of what we've approved previously. So basically, I have no questions at this point.
Okay. Thanks, Bob. Commissioner Santago.
There you go. Yeah, I echo Bob Salka's comments. This isn't really as Steve said, this is more of an administrative matter than anything. So I'm okay. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Locks.
Agree with the other commissioners. At the time in 2014, I gave my approval for this, and I'm sticking with that today.
I think you're the only one on the board who was on the board at the time. So, Commissioner Gwark. Thanks.
This is Commissioner Gwark. My only concern is that there was no samples of the compost mailed to us so we could smell the odors. I noticed that in the minutes they had samples so we could see how bad the odors were. Steve, do you have any? I know that was one of the concerns of the neighbors in the area as far as odors and just compost in general, the smell. So can you talk to that at all or?
I can tell you that I do remember it smelled just like dirt.
With you, Rob. This is Sue Lux. And at the time, it did not smell at all. It smelled like your soil that you would put in a hole in your backyard.
Commissioner Gwarick, again, that's all I had. Everything, if it's just a reapproval, I'm fine with it. I just was really hoping to smell some dirt. Thank you.
Everybody's got hobbies, so. Commissioner Volpe?
Commissioner Volpe here. Yeah, I think it's truly fantastic. I was excited back in 2014 about it. I just want to be sure that we review that all my fellow commissioners reviewed some of the stipulations that were made back in 2014, and just kind of wondering amongst ourselves if we plan to kind of reiterate, continue to work with the engineering department on the odor if that's an issue, and providing some sort of personal contact information should residents in the area have any kind of issues. But that's pretty much it. Other than that, I'm all for it. It's super cool.
So there's three people who've talked about the odor. I'll just add this. I actually toured the Quantum Biopower facility out on DePaulo Drive about 3 or 4 years ago. I don't know if anyone's had the opportunity to do that. I encourage you to if it ever comes up. There is an odor inside the facility that's pretty pungent, but outside you wouldn't know that anything like that was inside. And they do a really good job. I would think that this group would do an equally good job, and in terms of including those stipulations that were included in 2014. I mean, when we get to the business section of the application, we talk about that. But I think that they do a really good job out at the other digester that we have in town, and I have no reason to believe that these folks wouldn't do a good job either. So, Commissioner Macchio.
Oh, it's Commissioner Macchio. And first off, Mr. Chairman, I hate to say anything disparaging, but I was also on the board back in 2014 when this was presented. And
I stand corrected, Jim.
Yeah, that's okay. No, it really was a tremendous presentation. They put a lot into it, and it was really, really well thought out. I know that a lot of concerns did come up. Probably the biggest concern to do with the smell and surrounding area because Jansen is over there. But I think they allayed our fears. I know with everything that they did over there with the carbon filters, carbon activated filters for the smells and everything, it really was pretty good. I am definitely in favor. I was in favor back then. I am still in favor of it. I hope they actually get to put that plant into operation in the near future.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Commissioner Albanese.
Hi, Commissioner Albanese. I just want Mr. Judas to explain some of the permits that are required for other additional permits that are required for the operation and maintenance of this facility.
Thanks, Teresa. Commissioner Albanese, to be honest with you, I'm not an expert in this process, so I know that they do need to work with the DEP to get. It's something that has to be permitted by them. They have to go through a process to be vetted out, and they will monitor the process as it goes forward. So I don't know the specific permits, and most of my knowledge is from research, the previous minutes and so on, and that was what was testified. That would be required as part of this application.
Right. So is it considered?
Go ahead.
Commissioner Albanese, is it considered a solid waste operation?
I don't believe it's a solid waste operation. It's it's consumer waste. So it's basically a food product is what they're using from the school systems, grocery stores, and so on. It's recycling.
Thank you. I do remember this application because I was serving on the Conservation Commission at that time. So that, yeah, and I truly believe that this is a very good, sustainable facility, something that's needed in the state. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Teresa. Commissioner Coles.
I think that it's a pretty great opportunity for the town to have a second, and I certainly don't see a need to relitigate what has already been shaken down in the past, and I wish the best of luck to this applicant.
Thanks. Commissioner Coviello?
Yep. Hey, Bob, I'll also point out that I was also on the commission during this one as well. I had a lot fewer gray hairs at the time. But like Commissioner Macchio said, yes, this was really well thought out, a really good presentation, and obviously I continue to support it.
Okay. Okay, thanks. So we'll open it up to the public. Is there anyone who would like to testify in favor of this application?
Sorry, here, I'm gonna unmute everybody again. Anybody in favor?
I don't hear anyone, Rob. I'm not getting any messages on the board there. So is there anyone in opposition to this application?
Yeah, emails from a Robert, I believe is in opposition, or at least has questions. He's on the call right now. Can you hear us, Robert Hooper? Otherwise, I'll read the questions into the. No. All right, hold on. Let me just mute everybody again. Robert. 36 people on this meeting right now, so just give me a second. All right, so the first email comment I received from Robert Hooper, 8 Pine Grove Road. Mr. Phillips, I received a letter regarding this meeting because of the Senco LLC site plan off Spring Street. Based on the distance from this site plan to my home in the old Jensen's Park, now Sun Communities, next to the old Pratt & Whitney site, my question is, will there be any issue with the noise level coming from this plant once up and running? That's question one. Question two was, where is the entrance to the site? It states 111 Spring Street, but I could find no entrance for that particular property. And let's see. I heard from the meeting that any smell would be just the smell of dirt, but assume it will not have any odor, even of dirt smell, over in the Jensen's property. And then I just got another one. Oh, okay. He's saying he's not against the plan. So those are just questions. If the applicant can answer.
Steve, you want to take a shot at the noise remediation and the site entrance? Steve Judas.
I'm here, Stephen Judas with Harry Cole for the record. So I believe what they tried to do to remediate the noise was to place the greenhouse between the operation and the Jensen's properties and move the area where most of the active machinery would be some further south on the site. So the trucks would come in from the DJ site, they would head on the property and they would be then inside the building, the reception and the processing area. point happens in the building. Just the drying of the material happens outside, so there would be like a payloader outside that would material around. But again, that's blocked by the greenhouse. I think that was the attempt for that location of the greenhouse, was to minimize noise travel. We also have the vegetative buffer between the greenhouse and the Jensen homes. So I can gather from the previous application and previous minutes, I was actually at those meetings as well. That's what they tried to do to mitigate the noise. From the entrance is probably hard to identify because you have to actually drive through the BJ's park. You drive into the entrance, past the gas pumps, and go straight north, and then follow the parking lot around to the left and head west along the northerly property line of the BJ's facility, and then that's where you go into the property. It does have frontage on Spring Street by a very narrow strip of land, but turning movements into that property would be impossible. So, and it would require another curb cut. So, this property and the BJ's property were kind of developed together from the same owner, and the easements and use pathways and such were left over the BJ site for this facility, for this property. Does that answer the questions?
I think so, Steve. Let me understand the entrance in there. Are they going to be using the same entrance that BJ's uses currently?
Yes.
And these are what type of vehicle are we talking about?
There are trucks. Give me 1 second. There's a specific type of truck that they use that's closed. I apologize, Mr. Chairman. If you can give me a minute, I'm just trying to find the type of truck that they use. It's not, I don't believe it's a full tractor trailer.
This is Commissioner Volpe. Chair Hammersley, I had seen in the 2014 minutes that there was some discussion about trucks taking the I-84 exit on Queen Street and coming in via Queen Street. I don't know if you have any more information on that, Steve.
Yes, there was an offer by Turning Earth to ask all of their vendors to use Spring Street to I-84 to reduce the traffic on the westerly end of Spring Street, more residential areas. So that was something that the applicant proposed, and that we would continue. Does that answer the question?
This is Commissioner Volpe. I heard maybe like 4 things of what you just said. I can't tell if it's me or you, but I'm sorry. I'm starting to think it's me. It's not me. Thank you, Commissioner Santiago and everyone else.
We lost Mr. Judas.
So I think what he said, Christina, was that that there was an agreement at the time of the original application, and Steve, correct me if I get this wrong, that the trucks would use the Queen Street exit off of ID4 in order to avoid them traveling through that more residential area of Spring Street down towards the West Street intersection. Is that accurate, Steve?
Yes, that is accurate.
So what hours of operation are we talking about, Steve? Any idea?
Rob Phillips, Director of Planning here. I haven't been identifying it.
Can you guys?
My bad. I just wanted to interject real quick. Just speaking with the applicant, and actually the original applicant, Turning Earth, they have since abandoned the project. So as I understand, and Mr. Juice can correct me if I'm wrong, this is an attempt basically to get the extension, which lapsed last year, but essentially get an extension so that they can market the property for this use that was approved. And it's extremely likely if somebody does adopt this project that they're going to be coming back with a modified site plan, because they're not going to be entitled to use this technology. So there's going to be changes to the site plan. So it'll be back before you again, assuming someone picks up the project. There were 4 conditions of approval on the June 3rd, 2014 original approval that I would suggest carrying forward, and I can read that into the record when we get to that point.
Okay, thanks for that clarification, Rob. Okay, I don't think anyone else has any questions. We'll see if anyone else out there, any commission members have any more questions if they want to speak up. Wave.
It's Jeff Glorick, Commissioner Glorick.
Commissioner Glorick, go ahead.
Steve, I think Jim Grappone stated it on the chat that the trucks are delivery of yard waste. Is that, I was looking in the minutes, is that a typical Packer truck, like a garbage truck, I assume?
Hold on, okay, hold on. Steve, start over again.
Yeah, I don't know, Brian, I'm having some technical issues.
Getting a lot of feedback. All right, unmuted you one more time. No sound.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Salka, I think just to reiterate,
Commissioner Salka, go ahead.
I think just to reiterate what Rob had said, all the questions that we're asking really pertain to Turning Earth, which, from what I understand, has abandoned this particular application. So all we're basically doing, I don't think it really is not appropriate, but we're asking questions about the type of trucks, etc. That sounds like it's kind of a moot point at this. Again, still get a lot of feedback, but it sounds like it's sort of a moot point. All we're doing is reapproving this application as it is, but even though the applicant has abandoned the actual initial Turning Earth application. Is that correct?
Rob Phillips, Director of Planning again. Yeah, if the applicant had come in last year, like for example, last spring, 2019, they literally would have had just to file a letter requesting extension, and the commission would have acted upon that extension at that point in time. Because the entire approval lapsed within 5 years, that's why they're back in front of the commission at this point in time, because it's essentially a reapproval. And again, I'll reiterate, you're not going this plan is not going to happen. If another operator takes over this approval, they're going to have a different technology, and they'll be back before you anyway.
Okay. Steve, anything to add? If you can hear you, or
no, I apologize. Almost. Thank you for your time and consideration. I apologize for the technical difficulties here.
Okay. Rob, any reason to keep this public hearing open?
I don't see a reason. Let me just check my email one more time.
We have all the staff comments have been responded to.
Yeah, there was one more question. How many trucks will be going in and out of the BJ's entrance per day? The plan is before you right now actually wouldn't necessarily require that. access. I believe the access was off Spring Street. But maybe the applicant wants to answer that.
The testimony was 20 trucks per day.
That's kind of
That's
where I was
correct.
going with my question, so I'm glad that we got that out there. Okay,
Jim,
go ahead, Rob.
oh, sorry, Jim Grappone, did you have a comment or question about something? Let's see if you.
I don't know what's going on.
I see Jim twice on my screen, which is great, but for some reason it looks like he dialed in twice.
There's some kind of feedback going on here. I can't figure out who it is.
I think that's Jim. He looks like he dialed in twice for some reason. I don't know, but I think I saw him shake his head no, that he has no additional questions. Okay, so we'll close the public hearing on this matter and move into our business meeting. First item on the business meeting agenda is for Lovely Development Incorporated special permit application for multiple buildings at one site property located at 318 North Main Street, owned by Beam and Corman Manufacturing Company in a B zone, parcel size 1.65 acres, SPU number 633. We get a motion.
Mr. Salka makes a motion to approve SPU 633.
Is there a second?
Commissioner Macchio, I second.
So we have Macchio, or Salka and Macchio. Rob, is this ready for action, or is there anything outstanding on this one?
No, this one's ready for action. The applicant obviously withdrew their request for sidewalk waiver, so the special permit portion of this is ready for action. But the floodplain when we get to it, the floodplain application is still with Wetlands Conservation Commission at this point in time. So,
Okay, so Commissioner Salka, you made the motion. Do you have any comments?
No comments at this point, other than I really like the way it was. I like the application as it was presented, along with the change to adding the sidewalks.
Okay, thanks, Bob. Commissioner Macchio, any comments?
Commissioner Macchio, my comment is I'm glad that someone is doing something with that site. It's been an eyesore for a number of years. I know that there's been a lot of problems there because of the remediation. And the opportunity now to do it, I give Mark and his group a lot of credit for bringing this to fruition. I know they've been working on it for a number of years, so good luck to you.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Commissioner Santago, go to you next. You all set?
Yeah, I have no comments, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Commissioner Locks. You all set? Looks like Commissioner Gwark.
Commissioner Gwark, I echo Commissioner Macchio's statement. It's great something's done there. Everything looks good. It's going to be a heck of an improvement from what it is currently. So best of luck to Mark and his crew.
Thanks, Jeff. Commissioner Volpe.
Commissioner Volpe here. I think it's great. Honestly, I think it's a wonderful reuse of that historic space. I think it'll be great for the town. So all in from me over here. It's wonderful.
I'll echo the sentiment that's been expressed here. So with that, why don't we call the roll, Rob?
sure. Commissioner Gorick,
Commissioner Gwark, yes.
Commissioner Locks,
Commissioner Locks, yes.
Commissioner Macchio,
Commissioner Macchio, yes.
Commissioner Volpe,
Commissioner Volpe, yes. Sorry.
Commissioner Santago,
Santago, yes.
Commissioner Salka,
Salka, yes.
Commissioner Hammersley.
Hammersley's a yes, so congratulations, we got that one passed. Item B, I'm not going to read this one. It's the same application. This is the floodplain application, I believe. This is currently in front of the Wetlands Commission, Rob.
Yes, they have a follow-up site walk.
Okay, so I think we're looking for a table on this one, correct?
Correct.
So can we get a motion to table?
Mr. Selko, table FF 267.
Okay, Commissioner Salka, motion to table. Can I get a second?
Commissioner Sid. Go ahead, Jim. No, go ahead. I did the first one. Santiago, second table.
Okay, so we got a Salka Santiago tandem going here. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, hearing none. Motion passes. Item C, again, the same application. This is the site plan application piece of the application. Rob, we're probably looking for a table on this one as well.
Correct.
Okay, can we get a motion to table this?
Mr. Selko, motion to table SPR 1797.
Commissioner Salka made a motion, second.
Santiago, I'll second.
The Santiago Salka tandem arrives again. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Item D, this is Senko LLC for special permit application to construct multiple buildings on one lot to facilitate the development and operation of a source separated organics recycling facility known as volume reduction plant using anaerobic digestion and anaerobic composting to produce compost, renewable energy, and heat for use in greenhouses that will grow premium quality vegetables. Property located at 111 Spring Street in an I-1 zone, parcel size 37.4 acres, SPU number 537.1. Is this ready for action, Rob?
Yes, it is. And if I can, I would just read four stipulations for the commission's consideration that were actually enacted on approval June 3rd, 2014. Number
do
one.
that.
Yep. Number one, provide contact for any necessary complaint management. Number two, work with engineering on odor control with the memo dated 6/3/14. Number three, work with DEP on maintaining primary traffic routes to and from Queen Street rather than West Street. Number four, greenhouse will have no retail and, ready for this, no marijuana growing. Yes, that was a real
Number of times. That was a long time ago. So with those four previous stipulations, can we get a motion on this on this item, please?
Mr. Selko makes a motion on approval of SPUs 537.1 with the four stipulations outlined by Rob Phillips.
Commissioner Locke, second.
Commissioner Locke is a second. Is there any discussion?
This is Commissioner Macchio. Quick question. Can we really stop them from growing cannabis? What if they go and get a license? Because now, over the years, obviously it's changed. So is that something we could?
Let our marijuana relook about a year and a half ago, so maybe he can comment on that.
I believe we actually have a lot of more regulations for both retail and farming of that are pretty stringent in town. So this particular stipulation may be redundant.
Yeah, Rob Phillips, Director of Planning, they would have to come in and seek approval again through the Planning and Zoning Commission on this. Again, I'm just carrying forward the conditions of approval from 2014, so.
Yeah, that was actually, we had a couple applications come in, was it last year or a year and a half or so ago?
2 years ago.
On medical marijuana dispensary. So at that time, I think we didn't approve one and we approved the other one, which was over off of Merida Waterbury Turnpike behind Home Depot there. But then we sort of relooked, Peter led an effort to relook at our regulations and tighten those up a little bit. So, which you did a great job. And I can't remember if this parcel or this area shows up on that map, Peter, or not.
Yeah, it was a pretty tiny sections, given the amount of space near certain things that you'd be allowed to A, sell within a dispensary, and B, you couldn't be near schools and all sorts of stuff. So I'd have to, but it's a very sliver of land throughout.
Yeah, it's
And
minor.
just for the record, Rob Phillips again, the one that was approved locally on Nodder Drive was not approved and granted a license at the state level. So that never went forward.
True story. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none. Rob, can you call the roll on this?
Let's see, Commissioner Gorick?
This is Commissioner Gork. Do we need to amend our stipulations there just to approve the second, have an amendment and then approve because we're not doing marijuana stipulation?
No, I think that Peter said, hey, I don't have any problem with the stipulations there. I think it may be redundant. I have particularly no issue having those stipulations in there.
Commissioner Gork, if I'm still on the roll, then I vote yes.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Locks? Commissioner Locks, one more time.
Commissioner Locks, yes.
Okay. Commissioner Macchio?
Commissioner Macchio, yes.
Commissioner Volpe?
Commissioner Volpe, yes.
Commissioner Santiago?
Santiago, yes.
Commissioner Salka?
Selka, yes.
Chairman Hammersley?
Hammersley's a yes. Motion passes 7-0. Item E is the site plan for the same application. Rob, is this ready for action?
Yes, it is.
Okay, can we get a motion on item E, please?
Commissioner Selka, make a motion to approve SPR 1672.1. I don't think there was any stipulations on this particular application.
Negative.
Okay, can we get a second on Bob?
Commissioner Locks, second.
We got Salko Locks again. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Rob, can you call the roll, please?
Sure. Commissioner Gorick?
Commissioner Gork, yes.
Commissioner Locks?
Commissioner Locks, yes.
Commissioner Macchio?
Commissioner Macchio, yes.
Commissioner Volpe?
Commissioner Volpe, yes.
Commissioner Santiago?
Santiago, yes.
Commissioner Salka?
Commissioner Selka, yes.
Chairman Hammersley?
Hammersley's a yes. Motion passes 7-0. Moving on to item number F, 8F on our agenda, public information section in advance of an application to Connecticut Siting Council under their executive jurisdiction. Southington Solar One is a proposed 4.7 megawatt solar energy array located at 1012 East Street. Once operational, the project will produce 9,155 megawatt hours of renewable energy annually, the equivalent of offsetting 6,473 metric tons of CO2 emissions or powering over 1,000 homes each year. Southington Solar One will seek approval with the Connecticut Siting Council and will apply for a stormwater general permit with Connecticut Deep. Before we get into this, Commissioner Volpe, do we need to?
Yeah.
Do you need to do anything here, or we're all set?
Oh, sorry. I'm going to be recusing myself from this one. So Rob, if it's okay with you, do I close out now or should I come back for adjournment?
No, I mean, you're recusing yourself. It's on the record. It's just like sitting in the crowd at this point in time.
Yeah. So we'll see Commissioner Coviello in your place, Christina. And then I think the applicant is out there somewhere, so they'll be giving a presentation just for the members.
Chairman.
I'm sorry, Chair Hammersley.
Chairman, don't you think you should have seated Caleb in? Nah.
I wasn't done. I was going to ask to have Caleb seated in my place. Just
it should be another.
Oh.
Well, it's a public hearing, and everybody, all commission members, whether they're alternates or not, have the opportunity to weigh in on a public hearing.
Well, let me just, Rob Phillips again, just a point of clarification. It's actually just a public informational session. It's not literally an application before you. You don't have you don't have a thumb up or thumb down voting responsibility on this. It's basically to gather input from the commission and from the public in advance of the potential operator's application to the siting council. The siting council, Connecticut Siting Council, holds exclusive jurisdiction over these approvals or denials, and they'll take any information gathered locally in consideration when they're acting on the application. So.
And this is Commissioner Volpe, just one more time, just to clarify, in my recusal, if there is any commentary that does need to be made on behalf of a commissioner, that I would prefer that Commissioner Coles take my place. And that being said, I'll digress for this meeting. Be well, everybody. Good night. I'm just kidding. Bye.
Thank you. So just to let members of the commission know, and I've had conversations with some of you about this. The way we're going to do this is we're going to have the applicant or the person who's or the entity that's Solar One, Southampton Solar One, give us a presentation. The town has retained the services through Attorney Taylor of Keith Ainsworth, who's an attorney out of Wallingford, I believe, Keith. Is that correct?
That's New Haven.
Or New Haven, I'm sorry. Okay, close enough. Following the presentation, we'll have Attorney Ainsworth ask a series of questions that he's prepared, and then we'll open it up to the commission members, and then we'll open it up to the public to ask any questions that they might have. So with that, we'll turn it over to Southampton Solar One.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. If you could just make sure you identify name and address, please, just so we have it.
Yes, absolutely. Brian Fitzgerald here from Verigy on behalf of Southampton Solar One. And if it's okay, I could share my screen here to present the presentation. Okay, does everyone see the screen here?
Yep.
Great, thank you. So, Mr. Chair, Commission members, good evening. Thanks for having us tonight. My name is Brian Fitzgerald. I'm the Director of Development for Verigy. Also on the call with me this evening from Verigy is Will Herschel, our CEO, Steve Danino, our COO. With us on the call from All Point Technology Corporation is Brad Parsons. Brad is a professional engineer in the state of Connecticut, and he is working with us on the Southampton Solar One project. Also on the phone is Patrick McGloin from Gaffney Bennett Public Relations. He is also working with us on this project. So tonight we're going to get into the project itself, some specifications. We'll take a look at the site plan. Then we'll walk through some project characteristics. Then we'll touch on our public outreach campaign, the community feedback we received to date. And then we'll have a look at a quick carbon emissions analysis, and then touch on a timeline, a schedule, and then a wetlands update. So moving into it, Verigy is a vertically integrated solar developer based here in Hartford, Connecticut. We work with municipalities, small and large businesses across New England and Connecticut specifically. We focus on on-site and off-site solar energy projects, behind the meter and grid-connected projects as well. Getting into the project itself, the location of the project is 1012 East Street in Southampton. The project's configuration is 4.7 megawatts AC or about 7.3 megawatts DC. That means we've got about 18,798 solar panels mounted on driven post fixed tilt racking connected to string level inverters. We currently estimate the project area to be about 33.8 acres, while the parcel itself is about 102.92 acres, according to our most recent survey. So a couple of the key factors in getting into site selection and why we picked this site specifically are the fact that it is very low sloped with limited topographic features, making it ideal to site a solar energy facility. Another key factor is that there will be no clearing of forest habitat and only limited trimming and tree removal on the existing access road for the development and operation of the project. And the third key characteristic is that we are in close proximity to electrical infrastructure that is sound enough to support the interconnection of the solar facility. And that interconnection is going to be to a distribution network on East Street. So on behalf of the public need, it's important to touch on the fact that Southington Solar 1 is going to support the state's energy policies that are set forth in the Connecticut General Statutes of 16A-35K. Now, what that means specifically is that the project is going to provide clean, renewable solar-powered electricity and help the state in meeting its legislatively mandated obligations under the current renewable portfolio standard, meeting 40% Class 1 renewable energy by 2030. So to give a little context, as we sit here in 2020 today, we currently estimate that we are about 20 to 21% Class 1. And again, 100% of this renewable energy generation will come with zero emissions. We currently estimate that we'll produce about 9,128 megawatt hours of Class 1 renewable energy each year. That's equivalent to offsetting 6,454 metric tons of CO2 emissions annually. It's also the equivalent of powering over 1,000 homes each year. And it's also important to note that the project will produce most of its power at peak times when demand for electricity is the greatest. So moving on from there, we'll pull up our site plan here in a second, and then call out our landscaping protocol as it relates to visual screening. So moving into the site plan itself. Let me get us zoomed out here. So to give a bit of orientation, running north-south here is East Street, where my cursor is. These are the transmission lines that run south of the project area. And there's an existing access road that accesses the open field from East Street here. And to start here, we will be using the existing access road for electrical infrastructure and to gain access to the site itself. Moving into the project here, you see we have 3 specific project areas, and we are bisected by 2 natural gas transmission lines that run north-south through the property in this V formation, and then meet just here at this regular station south of the parcel boundary. So like we mentioned in the first slide, the modules are mounted on fixed tilt racking system at a 30-degree angle, and we currently have proposed 17-foot row spacing in between each row here, as you see moving east to west. Now all of these solar panels are going to be connected to string level inverters, and then run through switchgear and transformer, and ultimately out to the physical interconnection location at East Street. Moving on from the site plan, we'll get into some characteristics of a ground mount solar project. Sorry about that. So traffic. It's important to note here that this project is not going to result in increased traffic to the area. Hazardous materials. This project does not release any hazardous material into the environment at the project location. Noise. Solar projects are effectively silent. The inverter fans produce an ambient hum. They're not typically audible from outside the array enclosure itself. Emissions and odor. This project is not going to produce any local air emissions or odor itself. As it relates to natural resources and the work that we're currently completing with All Points Technology Corporation, through our environmental assessment that will ultimately be submitted to Siting Council, which will include a wetlands protection plan, we currently are proposing no undue adverse effect on natural resources and no water consumption at the site either. As for economic benefits, Southington Solar 1 will be an economic contributor to the town of Southington. Moving on to the public outreach plan. So from the start of developing this project, it's been our goal to be as open and transparent with community members and city officials as possible. So with that said, I'll start here by looking at the bottom of the slide where we highlight, in January of this year, we held a pre-petition filing meeting with town officials where we met, discussed the project, our goals. We shared some project-specific information at that time. And then from there, we continued to have communications with city officials on the progress of the project itself and the outreach to neighbors and stakeholders. So through February and March, we come to April, where we had put together the public outreach plan that you can see here on the slide. So with that, we have an abutter letter, a fact sheet, and an FAQ and questions and answer document. So in mid-April, around April 21st, we sent these letters and this fact sheet and FAQ document to all the neighbors and property abutters that were direct to the parcel itself. So from here, all of the stakeholders, neighbors, and city officials had access to the project's most up-to-date information on our website, verigy.com/SouthingtonSolar1, which is still up today and we will continue to use to provide updated information on the project and voice public updates as well. So moving on from April, on May 7th, we gave a wetland-specific presentation to the Inland Wetlands Commission in Southampton. Moving on from May 7th, we are here tonight on the 19th, meeting with the Planning and Zoning Commission to give an update and an overview on the project as well. Now from here and after leaving this meeting, we'll take all feedback, we'll answer directly via phone calls, emails, correspondences, and then plan to host another public meeting in early to middle of June, where we will make this public on the website as well and do our best to get out to the stakeholders and town officials so that it's known we'll be available again to discuss the project itself. So that's a little bit about the public outreach and how we've communicated to the town of Southington about the project. Moving on to some feedback. So some of the items that we've received from feedback from neighbors and city officials have been potential environmental impact. So the way we have addressed this potential environmental impact is by calling out through our wetland delineation and meeting with the Inland Wetlands Commission last week, on May 7th, that the project proposes no direct wetland impacts and no impact to threatened, endangered, or special concern species as currently listed with the state of Connecticut. So with that said, a wetland protection plan will be developed in concert with the environmental assessment, and protections and measures for local species will also be completed in this analysis. So it's important to note here that upon its submission to the Connecticut Siting Council, the environmental assessment and all of the environmental studies themselves are going to be publicly available on the Siting Council website so that anybody can go and view and read them. So another concern, another concern that we've received from local neighbors to the project have been the agriculture and the preservation of farmland in Southampton. So it's important to note that due to the temporary nature of solar as it relates to traditional development of commercial or residential facilities, is that after a 20 to 35 year useful life, the system will be decommissioned and the land returned to its agriculture production. So with that said, we are also currently working on a few components to bring agriculture into the project in the project area specifically. So it's important to note that we are currently working through these items and that we don't have any of them finalized yet, but are working to do so as soon as possible. First being a pollinator habitat and facilitating the establishment of beekeeping for local honey production once that pollinator habitat has been established. Farmland restoration, which means making acreage on the parcel that is currently not farmed available for agricultural production. This will be done through the removal of certain trees in certain locations to increase the acreage of farmable land on the parcel itself. And the third being the potential for intra-array farming. The array is designed in a way that there's 17 feet between the leading edge, the front side of one row, and the back side of the row in front of it. So with that said, we are currently working to see if the inter-row spacing of the array itself can be farmable by local farmers. Now from there, we'll touch on some of the environmental benefits. We don't need to run through all these because we said a few of them quickly. But it's important to note that the project itself produces enough electricity to power 1,000 homes each year. It will be the equivalent of offsetting 6,473 metric tons of CO2 emissions annually. Now from here, we'll touch a little bit on timeline and our current schedule. So as it sits right now on May 19th, we are currently here attending this Planning and Zoning Commission regular meeting. And then in June, after hosting another public meeting, we intend to submit Southington Solar 1 to the Connecticut Siting Council. Also in June, we'll be applying for a Connecticut Stormwater General Permit with Connecticut Deep. After a Siting Council review period, we are currently estimating and anticipating receipt of approvals from Connecticut Siting Council in October of 2020, with construction beginning shortly thereafter, and then completing in December or early in 2021. And then one quick update here as it relates to the project and our wetland activities. This was a slide that we directly touched on in our Inland and Wetland Commission meeting on May 7th, and I just wanted to bring this up here because we had an update that proves beneficial for the project and its proposed impact. As we stated in our Inland Wetland Commission meeting, this bullet point here highlighted in orange is what we said in that meeting, and have since updated that through a design configuration change with Eversource. So in that meeting, we told the Inland Wetlands Commission that the interconnection itself would require the installation of utility poles along the north side of the existing access road. This will result in some minor direct impacts to the wetland habitat there, and we estimated those to be about 2 poles or 24 square feet. So since that meeting, we were able to secure that design configuration change with Eversource, and we now no longer expect to have that minor direct or 2-pole 24 square foot impact to that wetland habitat. So with that said, Mr. Chair and Commission members, I'd like to open it up for your questions or comments, and then let everybody know that they can always visit vergy.com/SouthingtonSolar1 for more information, or send us emails directly at development@vergy.com.
Thanks, Brian, for that presentation. As I stated earlier, we're going to turn it over to Keith Ainsworth to raise some questions that he may have, and then we'll open it up to commission members. So, Attorney Ainsworth, go ahead.
Yes, good evening. This is Keith Ainsworth. I have law offices at 51 Elm Street in New Haven, and it's certainly my privilege this evening to represent the commission in the I'll get right into it. There's things you touched on tonight. I thought the presentation was fairly comprehensive. You covered a lot of ground, but I'd like to sort of touch on some specifics, if I could. You talked about that there's potential for, or you're working on the potential for agricultural activity within that 17-foot panel-to-panel space, and I was wondering what specifically have you secured any commitments from anyone to do that, or have you are you committing to ensuring that there's going to be some intra-panel agriculture on that?
Great question. And Brian Fitzgerald here again from Vergy. I just want to make sure that we have Will Herschel, Steve Domino, and Brad Parsons, who are also here from our team here, available to answer questions. And to address that question directly, so we are working on that possibility. Currently, we're working through the feasibility and making sure we can secure the commitment from a local farmer to make that happen. But we do not have anything formalized to date.
You also, I noticed that the footprint of the proposed facility is generally in the center of the city. That also happens to correspond with the prime agricultural soils on the soil mapping. And is there going to be any plan to rejuvenate those soils during the course of the operation by planting either legumes or other soil restorative plantings in between the rows, even if you're not doing agriculture for consumptive products?
Yes, great question. And Brian Fitzgerald here again from Vergy. So we are pursuing that avenue as well. Obviously, we are keeping it relatively open to this point to try and choose the best path forward. But in accordance with All Points Technology and other folks at local agencies, we have been working through the specific seed mixes that we would use in those scenarios. And Brad, if you wouldn't mind just giving a little background on the specifics of that seed and how it would help reinvigorate those soils.
Brad Parsons with All Points Technology Corporation. So yeah, a couple things that we are looking to do is potentially work in some seed mix, more local seed mix into the actual array area for establishment. Also, something that we've talked about and looked into is the possibility of aeration after completion of construction to ensure that any compaction that would occur during construction can be relieved from the site. And then additionally, in some of the habitat enhancement areas, mainly over near the vernal pool in the southeast corner of the facility, looking at doing some habitat enhancement there with some cool and warm grass seed mixtures, as well as potentially a pollinator habitat in some areas, including in the southwest corner of the site.
And actually, just to follow up on that, with the you had called out the idea or the concept of pollinator habitat. Are you planning on doing that in just those particular areas you just called out now, down by the wetlands, or are you going to do it in a buffer down the arrays or within the perimeter, and approximately how many acres?
Brian Fitzgerald here from Verigy, and we are still working through the specifics of that plan. Our goal right now is to make sure we can get some feedback from the local farmer to try and make sure that we have, the best plan moving forward. We wouldn't want to lead in with anything that we thought was, the best route, and it turned out not to be. So through some collaboration and the figuring of which land could be used best for what, we hope to finalize that plan in the coming weeks. Ultimately, the goal being as agriculturally friendly as possible with the project.
Can you guys hear me? This is Will Herschel. I don't know if you can all hear me. You can? All right, this is Will Herschel from Verigy. Just to follow up on that, yeah, we're working with local farmer to try and continue to farm the areas that are not impacted by the array. And I just wanted to mention that we're also working directly with the Department of Agriculture to make sure that we comply with all of their requests and concerns for some of the concerns that Brad Parsons just mentioned in terms of compaction and making sure that we're appropriately keeping this site available for agriculture at the end of its operational life. Thank you.
Keith Ainsworth again. That's really positive. With regard to the Department of Ag, I assume that's an ongoing process. Have they weighed in with any reports back to you, or is it just conversation?
This is Will Herschel again from Verigy, and we have provided them with a presentation. They have given us a number of questions, but they have not provided us a formal report or specific guidance at this point for the exact parameters of the precautions and steps we need to take for this individual project.
So you're expecting that for the Siting Council submission later on?
That's right. That is 100% correct. Yep.
And now, with regard to the owner, has the owner been say a partner in the plans for the decommissioning use of the property? I mean, have they committed to redeploying the parcel after the solar panels are decommissioned back into agriculture, or has that conversation not happened yet?
So this is Will Herschel again. In terms of our obligation via our lease and our obligation with the Connecticut Siting Council, we will be required to decommission the system and return it, obviously excluding wear and tear, back to its original status. In terms of what the landowner does with the property, will be up to them from that point forward. but we have to make sure that's available for agriculture going forward at the end of that period of time.
Fair enough. Now, just turning to the subject of screening, you touched briefly on that. I think certainly from a community perspective, have you, say, a visual impact or visual intersection study where you determined where the facility will be visible from residential properties, and then sort of a follow-up on that? Have you looked to see if there's going to be any glare impacts from reflection from the panel?
Yes, Brian Fitzgerald here from Verity, and we are currently in the process of working through that visibility assessment. And again, that would be publicly available upon submission to the Connecticut County Council. So in accordance with all points in their scope of work, they have identified various locations throughout the community in the vicinity of the project area that have been located and identified to take pictures from, which we will then complete that visibility assessment and then work through layering in the proposed vegetative screening and buffers to make sure to soften the views as much as possible.
Yeah, this is Keith Ainsworth again. Might encourage you to engage those, the neighbors who you believe preliminarily might be impacted, and get them to maybe give you permission to take from private property that you may not otherwise have access to. I know that sometimes comes up in all points reviews. They can't get private access; they can only view it from public roads, and sometimes that's a long shot second best. So you might make their, obviously it's up to the landowner whether they give that permission, but it might be in their interest as well to do that. That's just a comment. And then as far as the screening, I saw the proposed sort of array, which would be 2 plantings and then a third offset. Are you thinking of a particular type of species and height of planting? And was it going to be just 1 row, 2 rows?
Yes, this is Brian Fitzgerald here at Verity, and great question. We have been thinking through that visual screening, and the current species we are looking at right now to accomplish that would be a Spartan juniper, something that should provide evergreen coverage throughout the year, not just seasonal. It is our goal to plant mature trees in that area, and it would not be a singular row. It would more so be a staggered row where we have a front row of 10 foot on center, two plants planted 10 foot on center, and then 1 plant in between that is a 5 foot offset of that, just to make sure we can have ample screening and coverage in combination with that Spartan juniper and evergreen plant, as well as the mature nature of the plant itself.
That sounds like an interesting way of going about it. One of the other aspects of screening is, of course, you can establish trees to a certain degree, but sometimes they don't always take. Now, this is, of course, agricultural soil, so they should have a better shot than most. But is there, I suppose, is the applicant willing to commit to maintaining the screen during the life of the facility in case some of these either succumb to disease or drought or other stress factor?
Brian Fitzgerald there with Verity, and yes, the project operator and the owner of the system will be required for the maintenance of the array area and the areas directly outside of it, including that screening. So under that responsibility, they would manage that vegetation as well.
Life of the facility?
Correct, for the operational life of the facility.
I noticed that there's on the NDDB list, the Natural Diversity Database obtained by DEP, not a comprehensive list, but I noticed that there were some what they call blobs or areas where they have identified or have been reported listed species, that would be species of special concern, threatened species, or endangered species, occurring within the project site, but not necessarily within the project footprint. What studies have you done to either confirm or further the information on?
Brian Fitzgerald here from Verigy, and I will have Brad Parsons will step in and get into detail on that, but we have been consulting with DEEP and NDDB. Brad, if you could give a couple of specifics, that'd be great.
Yeah, no, of course. So yes, we've submitted a DEEP, again, sorry, Brad Parsons, All Points Technology Corporation. We did submit to DEEP NDDB for the parcel. We've come back with a couple listed species, one being a turtle and another being a host plant. Not to get into too many specifics on it, but as part of our wetlands protection plan, we will come up with that includes plans that deals with the turtles during construction. And that was also part of the reason for the habitat enhancement along the vernal pool on the southeast side of the project. Additionally, we will be doing surveys for the rare plant per NDDB, but that plant cannot be surveyed until midsummer when it actually blooms. So once we're able to do that, we will be on site to actually survey if that plant is actually on site or not for presence absence.
I think that comes up during the siting council process, probably June, July. Right?
Correct. And anything, and again, Brad Parsons, anything found would be supplemented as part of our filing with the council.
So thank you very much. I think you've answered the questions I have for the moment, and I'll turn it back over to Chairman Hammers for the council.
Thank you, Attorney Ainsworth. So I'm gonna go through the commission members and see if they have any questions, and we'll start with Commissioner Macchio.
This is Commissioner Macchio. No, I have no questions at this time.
Okay. Commissioner Gwark.
This is Commissioner Gwark. Attorney Ainsworth addressed most of the major points, specifically the glare and screening for neighbors, and ultimately, you know, at the end of the life cycle, returning it to agricultural land, because it is important to Southington to keep as much agricultural land as possible. So I appreciate that, and so that, yeah, that's about it.
Okay. Commissioner Locks.
One question. How close to the vernal pool will you be getting?
This is Brad Parsons. So we are holding the town's 200-foot vernal pool buffer per the Inland Wetland Commission bylaws.
Okay, just making sure you're holding that. Thank you.
Is that it, Sue?
Yeah.
You all set? Commissioner Santago.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You reference it being an economic impact, positive economic impact for Southington, presumably in the realm of tax dollars. So what is your estimate upon completion of the project that Southington could see on potential tax revenue?
This is Will Herschel from Verigy, and so you're correct. Unlike other solar projects here in the state that are either behind the meter or are participating in virtual net metering, this project would not be tax exempt. So we expect to pay property taxes for the personal property and the equipment at the location. We are probably looking to start at a rate of $5,000 per megawatt AC, which is based off of recent proposed legislation for fixing that throughout the state of Connecticut for these types of solar projects. to try and get rid of some of the loopholes that are out there for virtual net metering projects. But we recognize that it would be most likely a discussion with the town to make sure that we can come to terms that they feel are agreeable. In full disclosure, we have spoken with the town about the potential to provide virtual net metering credits to the town to provide them additional savings in addition to property tax revenues. But as of right now, number one, we have not come to terms on that. And number two, the virtual net metering caps in the state of Connecticut have not been raised and they are currently full. So that's kind of the full breadth of that.
Do you have an estimate on property taxes outside of the metering part, like just straight property tax?
Yes, I tried to reference that as $5,000 per megawatt AC. So that would,
so forgive my math skills are a little suspect. So how much, so in real dollars and cents, what do you guess? Here's what I'm trying to get at. $10, $100,000, $10 million, you know, what range are we thinking?
So
here's the way I see it.
Probably around $30,000 a year based off the final system size. That would be probably the starting point. Yep.
Gotcha. So I wanted just a general figure because if we're going to be giving up open space, you're giving up farmland, you're giving up all those things, what do we get? And so what we're saying, if I do a cost benefit analysis, I'm getting 30,000 a year property tax. And you talked a little bit about rates and things like that, which we kind of don't know. Is that basically what we're talking about?
That's right. But I would also add that we're not trying to eliminate farming at the location. We're trying to maintain farming for the remainder of the property that's not being used by the solar array. So we're not trying to eliminate that. And we're also trying to increase the acreage at the facility or at the location at the parcel that can be used for agriculture that is currently not being used for agriculture. And then just to reiterate that we hope that at the end of the life cycle of the project that the soils will be available again for agriculture as opposed to a traditional development.
Understood. Thank you. That's all this time, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thanks, Peter. Commissioner Salka?
Yes, I have a couple of questions. Number one, how was this site selected versus perhaps other sites within the town of Southampton? How was this particular site selected?
Brian Fitzgerald here from Verigy, and the site was selected based on three primary criteria, one being the low slope on the parcel itself, very limited topographic features. This is important because we are required by Connecticut DEEP in their stormwater guidelines to be within certain topographic levels of grade when we design and permit and install these solar projects. The second key factor was the fact that we would not be having any impact to forest land habitat and not require the removal of forest itself and only the minor trimming and select removal of certain trees on the interconnection route and the existing access road. And then the third key factor is that the project has close proximity to interconnection viability with the Eversource distribution network, meaning that there is three-phase power nearby the site, which makes the project site a viable location to interconnect a renewable energy generating project of this size and scale.
Thank you. One other question. You mentioned about a pollinator habitat, and then you mentioned that this site will generate some ambient noise, but it'll only be heard within the complex itself. Would that affect the pollinator habitat, that ambient noise?
Brian Fitzgerald here from Verigy, and I can't comment directly on the potential effects and the impacts of that pollinator habitat, but we do know that this is a widely practiced method throughout the industry on projects like this. It's popular. It's becoming very popular in the state of Connecticut, and it has been for some time. And pollinator habitats exist in solar projects like this in Massachusetts, New York, Maryland, Pennsylvania, and across the Mid-Atlantic.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Commissioner Coviello?
Thanks, Commissioner Hammersley. I have a couple questions. So I think in the presentation, the total size of the land is 102 acres, and I think this project is going to consume about 34 acres of that. It looks like it's the area that's pretty well clear cut primarily where like the prime soils are. So if this project goes in, how much of that land will still be available for farming without, any additional clearing?
Brian Fitzgerald here from Vergy, and that's a great question. We are currently working on calculating that acreage and making that readily available. But there are good sections of the parcel that are available to be accessed via farmland restoration, something that we're currently talking about with the property owner themselves. So that's a great question. I don't have a specific acreage that I can provide to you tonight, but I can take that as a follow-up.
And have you guys considered, so it sounded like you're willing to give back, so clear up some additional space if there was a way to reach an agreement, with local farmers. I mean, have you considered maybe looking at other areas of that plot that might require clearing that don't disturb the existing farming operation or the good soils, I guess to say?
Brian Fitzgerald here from Vergy, and that's another great question. And the areas that are currently contemplated are in two different locations. So we wouldn't necessarily choose those locations over the one that is currently proposed. And the goal of being on the eastern side of the parcel was to stay as far away from the cropland soils currently and the neighborhood as well.
Okay, thank you. And then one other one. So I think you guys have mentioned looking into not having a real commitment yet, but looking into opportunities to farm within, in between the solar panels, that 17-foot section. In your experiences, have you guys ever done that before? Have you seen kind of that cohabitat kind of work, the arrays and the farming together? Or is that just an idea that you guys are exploring?
Brian Fitzgerald from Vergy, and that's a relatively new concept, the inter-row farming concept. Another concept that's widely practiced throughout New York and other in the Mid-Atlantic itself would be a grazing program. For example, sheep can graze within the array itself, but the inter-row farming component itself is relatively new because more and more over the last few years, we've seen projects condense the size of their row spacing to try and increase the amount of panels they can install into a certain area. So really the ability to farm that inter-row spacing is relatively new and something we hope we can be innovative with and on the leading edge.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Okay, thanks, Joe. Commissioner Coles.
Hi. So I had most of my questions were answered. Commissioner Santiago kind of addressed the concerns with the revenue stream that would be generated from the facility. And then Commissioner Coviello did touch on what I was thinking with regard to expanding. But I just kind of want to circle back around to expanding the farmland. It kind of seems like we'd be robbing Peter to pay Paul if we're going to clear cut some forest land to expand some farmland. So it seems like it's almost like a double loss. But how much of that space would we be removing? Would it be a significant portion to expand the farming while removing the forest land?
Great question, Brian Fitzgerald here from Vergy, and that's what we're working on establishing right now. So we're just trying to be conscious that in that effort, we don't have undue impact elsewhere. So obviously, the removal of certain trees in certain parts of the parcel would not take place in the wetland habitats and vernal pool habitats, and we'd make sure to keep the appropriate buffers from that area. So that's currently what we're working through to make sure, to your point exactly, we're not robbing Peter to pay Paul.
And this is Will Herschel. I just would add to that. I think you've identified a little bit of a tension between the Department of Agriculture and Deep Forestry in terms of what their priorities are for these types of projects. What we're searching for is the happy medium. We want to make sure that we're satisfying Department of Agriculture and the farming community in terms of making sure that they have access to farmland as they want to farm it, while being conscious and cognizant of trying not to remove trees or forests or core forests or edge forests, et cetera. So it is definitely searching for the happy medium.
Good. I appreciate the effort to make a balance there. Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Fitzgerald, can you just stop sharing at this point in time so we can see everybody in the meeting?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks, Caleb. Commissioner Albanese?
Commissioner Albanese, I do have a lot of professional experience. I've been working on solar projects for the past 2 years in New York and New Jersey, and quite significant sized ones as well. So I have good experience with what's going on with this whole project, your presentation. I understand a lot of what you're doing and some of the mitigation that you're trying to do and enhancements. One question I do have is related to with historical significance and archaeological studies. Were there any requirements with the Connecticut SHPO to after submitting your project review form, did you need to do any kind of a phase 1 or shovel testing of the farmlands for any potential impacts to any resources?
Hi, Brad, just here there from Verity, and that's correct.
Excuse me?
Sorry, Brad, go ahead.
No, I was going to help you there, Brian. Brad Parsons here. So we did do a phase 1 analysis, and it did come up with some areas of moderate to high sensitivity, and we are in the process of moving forward directly into a phase 1B shovel test for those areas. So we've actually not submitted our phase 1A to SHPO. We're going directly to a phase 1B for those areas, and once that's complete, it will be submitted to SHPO along with those findings for concurrence.
Great. Commissioner Albanese, thank you. And if your findings, say, from the phase 1B indicate that there's areas of archaeological significance, would some of the arrays be kind of redistributed around those areas? Would you outline those areas and avoid those areas?
Again, Brad Parsons, yes. I mean, that we would work with our heritage consultants is our archaeological expert on this project, and so we would work with them, take their recommendations on any things that were found, and employ the appropriate buffers for those areas as well.
Great. Okay, Commissioner Albanese, thank you for addressing that. Another question I have, I understand that you are going to be preparing your registration for your Connecticut general permit, and at the same time, you're probably going to be following the DEEP's I guess their January 2020 guidance recommendations for solar development. Is that correct?
That is correct. As part of the current draft permit that was issued by Connecticut DEEP earlier this year, they issued some draft guidance with regards to solar, as well as a draft of Appendix I, which is directly related to solar development. So one of the things that I would point out here with regards to the site plan, from a drainage standpoint, this site normally would involve minimal disturbance under a calculation standpoint if we weren't dealing with Appendix I. Appendix I is requiring solar projects now to actually decrease the hydraulic soil group by a class, so going from either B to C or C to D to, in their opinion at this time, to deal with compaction. It's our belief that there are other ways to do that. However, we are following their draft guidance at this time until the permit is fully issued. So as a result, we are proposing 4 stormwater basins on this site to meet pre versus post stormwater calculations, assuming that drop in hydraulic soil group here. So we will have significant, I won't say significant, but fairly significant stormwater controls in this case, where we likely would not have them in an open field situation.
Commissioner Albanese, thank you very much. I do have just a few other questions, if you could bear with me. What's the total acreage of disturbance, land disturbance? I know you're going to be addressing that in your registration for your general permit. With the posts, the conduit, your inverters, and basically your posts are your majority of your disturbance, right? So, you have so many panels, so, but they're insignificant as far as they're small disturbances. So What's your total land disturbance?
So additionally, as part of the new appendix, or not necessarily Appendix I, but as far as the new draft guidelines for the general permit in the state of Connecticut, they are considering compaction as a disturbance level now. So under that guidance, we are now basically required to consider our entire solar array area as disturbance. It won't be disturbance in the normal sense that somebody would be, digging there, but to set the posts, install the racking, materials, the fencing and such, we will be driving over that land. There are other ways to potentially reduce that compaction, but Connecticut Deep is assuming that. So with that being said, we're probably looking at upwards of 30 acres of quote unquote disturbance as it relates to that new guidelines and definitions.
Okay, so Commissioner Albanese again. So, so the existing road that you're going to use for your construction and for your access, for your main access, is that going to be? Are you going to improve that road to make it a permanent access road for the 30 years, 35 years of the operational life of the facility, or are you going to improve it just for construction?
The intent would be to improve it for construction, but ultimately for the overall life of the facility. Again, Brad Parsons, sorry. It's a pretty well-established base right now, gravel. So ideally, it would just be a top dressing, reestablishment there, and then extension of and readjustment of the road itself around the site, still providing, and that access road along the northern section of the array would be outside the fence line, still providing access to the remainder of the property.
Commissioner Albanese, thank you. So there's an external road, and that's not going to be improved, or that will be the exterior road, I should say.
That will be improved because that will be Brad Parsons. It will be an actual new road on the north side of the facility. The current access path road through the site leads through the middle of the arrays right now, so that will be relocated and there will be a new road that's installed.
Okay, all right. Commissioner Albanese, thank you. And I guess my last question real quick, regarding the Natural Diversity Database response that you received and the turtle that was identified, would there be during construction some sort of monitors on staff, like during construction, environmental inspectors, besides environmental inspectors, but like specific qualified folks that would be doing turtle sweeps or monitoring of the turtles to remove them out of the area during construction?
Brad Parsons, yes. So as part of our wetland and vernal pool protection program, that will also include the turtle protection program with herpetologists that and qualified individuals on site. That usually involves a initial training to all the contractors at the start of a project, initial sweeps. We still need to look at and set up where our isolation barriers will be with relation to the habitat in the facility. There is the vernal pool in the southeast corner. There is a corridor of access through the wetland feature that heads actually to the north across the existing access road. We will likely be setting up either silt fence or sycophated fence along that area there, basically making sure that the contractors are looking each morning on the way into the site, but trying to establish some barriers so that way the turtles are actually crossing the road there as well during construction.
Great. Commissioner Albanese again. Okay, thank you. And my last question is for the site decommissioning, does that also include a site restoration plan as well? So is it like a dual focus? You're not only decommissioning, but you're actually restoring, having some good data to be able to restore the site. So it's combination site restoration plan as well.
Brad Parsons, yes, that is correct. It's a site restoration / decommissioning plan. I think the only thing that would probably be open for discussion as far as a decommissioning sense is the access road itself, with the relocation of that road to the northern half of the site, outside the center there. That may be something that actually remains and stays versus getting relocated again back to the center of the site.
Commissioner Albany, thank you very much for answering my questions. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Teresa. Before we open it up to the public, I just have a minor question, and I'm just going to frame it here for you all. Commissioner Salka asked a question about site selection, which I think was an interesting question and an interesting response. And I think it was Brad who cited 3 different factors that they use for site selection: topography, forest land habitat, and interconnection viability to the Eversource assets that are in that area. I'm sure you're all familiar with Southington's plan of conservation and development. And if you are, I'm sure that it didn't go unmissed that within the context of that legislatively mandated document that the town of Southington develops, farmland is identified as one of the top 5 priorities with regards to open space. In addition to that identification, farmland is also specifically brought out as a quote unquote community asset within the town of Southington. And I'll just read a short sentence here. Farm and farming are a large part of the history and character of Southington and contribute to the overall community in many ways. Support of agricultural activities is an important aspect of encouraging a more livable community and sustainable future. And then within the context of the plan of conservation development, it identifies as a policy that we will work to preserve existing farms and soils that have potential for agricultural use. By all accounts, the property that's identified here contains that farming soil that have potential agricultural use. So I'll go back to Bob Solka's question and just ask, did you consider the plan of conservation development, and are there other places in Southington or outside of Southington that were considered as part of your site selection? And if so, where were those and why was this one chosen over those?
Hello, this
Thank you,
is
Mr. Chair.
Will
Brian
Herschel.
Fitzgerald here from.
Go ahead, Brian. Excuse me.
Sorry, go ahead, Will.
I was just going to mention that I think the criteria that Brian mentioned specifically are extremely important. I'll also mention that it's important based off of the criteria in terms of what the ratepayers in the state of Connecticut need for the lowest cost of electricity, that we're able to install an array that is larger than an array that might be installed on a smaller piece of property, because those types of installations typically provide the lowest cost to ratepayers, which is another reason, another criteria that we try to search for these individual projects. In working with different landowners across the state, we certainly have reached out to individual parcels in Southington and all across the area to try and find the best areas for us to install these types of projects. And it's sometimes incumbent upon the landowners to come to terms with us on those types of opportunities. And I would just like to stress the importance of the interconnection aspect of citing these individual projects. It might not be known to this commission that anytime a project like this is interconnected to the utility, there's a significant amount of expense that goes along with upgrading the electrical infrastructure on the circuit that it is interconnecting to. And that is borne by the developer, the owner of that generation asset. And that doesn't matter what type of generation asset that you are. So making sure that you can actually interconnect onto the distribution network is maybe more important than you might think if you were just looking for 3-phase power. But that, Brian Fitzgerald, I don't know if you had anything to add to that.
Brian Fitzgerald here, and Will, that's a great point. I would just add to speak to the chair's point, we did look at, dozens upon dozens of sites and selected this one. To Will's point, we do work with various landowners across the state, some of which you're able to come to terms with, others of which give you no response at all, right? So, we reach out to hundreds of different landowners and try to work with as many of those folks as we can with different properties, with different siting criteria and different zoning regulations across, multiple cities in Harford County, New Haven County, and across the state.
Can you identify any of those communities, Brian, or is that something you're not willing to do right now?
Brian Fisher from Vergy, and the communities themselves, excuse me, yes, Berlin, other places across the state, Bristol, others in North Haven, a lot of different communities, that provide the criteria that we mentioned, being good interconnection viability and site selection that would lead us to a permittable project as it relates to DEEP and the Connecticut Siting Council, making sure we don't have the undue adverse environmental impact when siting these projects.
And I would just, this is Will Herschel again, I would just add that, as a renewable energy company, we do not want to be at odds with preserving the environment or preserving farmland. We would like to the extent possible, coexist as best as we can with the farmer on that parcel. We'd like to make sure that we're preserving the farmland soils as best we can for the duration and the operation of our facility, so that we hope it is a form of preservation for that farmland. So if at all possible, we try not to be at odds. And what we're trying to do is really to preserve the environment with the production of renewable energy. But that's just a little color there.
Yeah. And I appreciate where you all are coming from, and I appreciate you coming before us and taking your time and resources to give us this presentation. I'm not necessarily personally sold that this project is one that considers the environment necessarily based on what I just read to you all. So I have to imagine that there's got to be other sites out there that could meet all three of those criteria without removing some piece of farmland from a community's inventory right now. And as we all know, farmland is something that we've lost a substantial amount of inventory on in this town and throughout the state of Connecticut, and for that matter, throughout the northeastern part of this country. But we're probably not going to solve that here tonight. So I guess with that, I'll see if there's any members of the public who have any questions or any comments that they would like to provide to us.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to unmute everybody. 3, 2, 1.
So if there's anyone out there, identify themselves and speak up and try to do this in as orderly a fashion as we can. I'm not hearing anyone.
And again, is HISR@southington.org. I don't have any at this time. That's for those who can't comment through this.
So all mics are currently unmuted. I think you just muted them up again, Rob. I didn't hear anything.
All right, we'll do.
Anybody out in the public who expressed a desire to address the commission or the proponent of this project. So I think I just got one that just came in. Hold on one second. Yeah, I don't think that's necessarily someone who wants to talk to the commission, but with that, I'll toss it back to Attorney Ainsworth and see if he has any additional questions or thoughts he wants to share with us at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think we've covered the ground that can be covered now. before you get to the siting council, there's this process that's somewhat iterative, where they come to wetlands, they go to P&Z, and at each stage, they get a little bit more refined. Clearly, there's some parts of this project that are still being worked on, and with regard to precisely what kind of ongoing agriculture might be able to be done during the course of the life of the project. And I think that's important. That the commission and the town continue to follow up with the applicant, because there's a number of significant questions in my mind about, I mean, they're looking into interpanel agriculture. They're looking into the agriculture that might be able to be done around the panels, and they're looking into the pollinator friendly plantings, but none of these things have been really nailed down. So I think it's important that the town continue to participate. Fortunately, the town does have the ability to go before the siting council and make a statement during the public hearing process.
Thank you, Attorney Ainsworth. Attorney Taylor, do you have anything to add?
I don't have any follow-up. I just want to appreciate Attorney Ainsworth for participating tonight on behalf of the town. And I think you all had, there's nothing further from me.
Yeah, I think the commissioners did a great job with their questions, and I think the proponent of the project did a good job presenting their viewpoint and their perspective on this project as well. So I don't know that we need to keep this open any further. Does anyone else have any thoughts on that? I don't see anything. I don't hear anything. Rob, any thoughts? Rob Phillips?
Rob Phillips, no, I think everything was covered very well. Again, it's not an application, so you don't have to act on it per se. But obviously, any feedback that's been gathered, I'm sure Attorney Ainsworth will be compiling and moving forward from there.
Yeah, I look forward to that. I look forward to him working with Jeremy Taylor to do what he can do. So so with that, I guess we'll move on to item number 9, administrative items. Rob, anything?
No, just an update that we've had in the last couple of days with our temporary outdoor dining policy, which was enabled by the most recent governor's executive order 7MM. We've had probably, I think, about 8 different applicants at this point in time, or restaurant operators, with another 3 coming in tomorrow. So certainly they're jumping on board, and we're expediting that process as best we can, and trying to at least get that sector back into business.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And just for everyone's informational purposes, there's the second meeting of the Southampton's Long-Term Recovery Committee is going to be held tomorrow at noon. And that's part of what's on the agenda, is to look at how we come out of this. And before we go too far, I just want to take a moment to circle back for a second and thank Brian, Will, Brad, Patrick, and there was one other person whose name I didn't get. And thank them for coming in and giving us the presentation on the solar project out on East Street. So, but again, to get back to item number 9, we will be meeting tomorrow. I think that will be done by WebEx as well. So people are welcome to come in and listen in, and it pretty much is a collaborative effort. I think with the first meeting, we had a couple owners of restaurants and some beauty salons, barbershops who participated. So I'm sure that we'll have the same thing for tomorrow. Rob, any sense on when we might be able to get back into a person-to-person meeting like the old days?
Yeah, the most recent correspondence from the town manager is that we're going to continue our digital meetings going forward. Really have no idea when that might end. Certainly the bridge the former college that was discussed that we continue to June 16th. That'll is most likely going to be right here again on WebEx. I don't see that it's going to change anytime before July 1st. But as you know, with this situation, things change by the day sometimes. So we'll see what happens. But at this point in time, it's we're going to keep moving forward with WebEx.
Okay. Okay. Does any other commissioner have anything that they want to talk about under administrative items? I don't see anything, so we'll move on to number 10 on the agenda, items scheduled for a public hearing. Rob?
Yeah, we have just a garage in excess of 3 spaces. We've had a lot of these lately, and that'll be scheduled for the next meeting as well. That actually was in earlier, I believe. It's just they didn't provide the necessary information that we needed in order to put them on the agenda. So it'll be on for the next one.
Okay. Any new applications?
That's it.
That's it. So we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Commissioner Salka, so move.
Commissioner Salka, second.
Santiago, second.
Santiago, second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Hey guys, you did a great job again tonight. I'm so proud of everybody here. This is the third meeting I think we've had in this format, and everyone's doing a really good job. We're going to be experts by the time this is over, and I look forward to that time. But in the meantime, everyone be safe and enjoy yourselves. So with that,
Great. Thank you very much. It's made my life a little bit easier.
That's what we're all about. We'll see you, Rob.
All right. Thank you.
Sorry to hear about your grandmother there. I hope everything goes okay.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Have a nice weekend, everyone.
Have a good night.
Thanks for your time. Have a nice night.